welcome back to the Middle School GSA. I'm Felonious Ferris. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Demigloom, and my pronouns are she, her.
Woohoo!
Yay. We're back, finally. After how long? Like a month?
Something
less than a month.
Like
less
3
than a
weeks.
month, but like 3 weeks, yeah. Yeah, my computer, I tried downloading or like updating my graphics driver, and my computer display just stopped working. So I couldn't. I tried everything. Everybody's like, did you try plugging it into a monitor? I already had it plugged into a monitor. The screen was shattered. My screen shattered like 2 years ago. My screen shattered before I even started the Brony Initiation podcast. But I've been plugging it into a monitor and using it like a desktop. But yeah, when I tried to update my graphics, it just killed the display completely. It worked fine. Like I heard the startup sound, and I was able to like drag up and type in my passcode and get it like working. But I just couldn't see the screen. There was nothing for me to do. So I was completely fucked. And I had to wait, get a job, and get a new computer. I do have a job now, but I was going to get a job anyways. I was just waiting for someone to call me. But yeah, we're back. I got a new computer that's better in some ways, worse in others. I can't play Fortnite anymore, which is a travesty. But I can play Minecraft, and I can run FL Studio at like way better than my old one did.
Wow.
But yeah, for the majority of purposes, I'm back. Everything that I was doing. I just have to wait till my next paycheck so I can buy a transfer device to basically take my old hard drive, plug it in my new laptop, and get all the old files that I had. So I'm missing some things, but we're back on track for the most part.
Woohoo!
What have you been up to, Felonious Ferris?
I've been in a depressive episode watching One Piece, and not doing anything productive. I've started like 4 different art projects and finished none of them. And I don't think I'm gonna finish any of them either, except for my icon, which I'm still working on.
I see. When is that gonna be done? Not tomorrow, I assume.
Probably not. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I guess this show is over. We're never doing another episode again.
No.
Fuck you. I knew I was gonna have to pay a different artist to get a temporary one.
I can do it.
I'm not gonna. You could get it done tomorrow.
Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow.
Well, it's Wednesday. I'd like to have the visuals done tomorrow, so I can upload them on Friday.
I'll try.
Because especially now that I have a job, I don't have time to edit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have time to load up FL Studio and get everything ready. Like I wake up, I go to work, I come home, I go to bed. That's my life now, except for Mondays, Tuesdays.
Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. Make
10 to 7.
Lose your mind.
Way more depressing. 10 to 7 it's literally like the worst possible shift you could ever work. Because no matter what, like when you're working at 10, you have to get up early, and you don't get enough time to like do anything. You kind of just get up, get ready, and then when you come home, it's like 7:15 to 7:30 by the time I'm actually home. And I basically just have to wind down and go to bed so I can get up at a decent time every day. So it's like 4 days of miserable torture and just suffering, just constant suffering. And then a nice 3-day break. But I get paid $14 an hour, which it's depressing that's something to get excited about, but it is. It is pretty good.
It's not the worst.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. When I was working at McDonald's for $11.50 an hour, it was not worth it. Like, yeah. I definitely should have worked somewhere else. I would have worked for less money for like a less stressful job. That shit was just fucking depressing. But this isn't the job episode. We got comments and a single voicemail, and we have a really fucking stupid voicemail. I thought we had a real voicemail because I wrote down that we had one voicemail, and I fucking went through a bunch of effort to get this ready. But anyways, comments on the Pro Shipper episode. Jesus Christ, it feels like it's been so long. David Fern says, I've never really had any fictional crushes other than wanting Susie from Deltarune to maul me to death. Okay. David Fern also says, I learn about so much fucked up evil shit on the internet from this podcast. I'm surprised people learn from this podcast. I thought we were discussing like relatively known things.
I mean, pro shipping is pretty niche.
I don't think it is. If you're even like remotely involved in like any fandoms on the internet, like you hear about it.
I don't know, I guess.
At the very least, you see like pro shippers DNI in somebody's bio.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Zane comments, is woohoo, new MSG. It's MSGSA. Silly goose. And also says, OMG, I forgot to delete those KS comments. I sent those before I heard the rest of the reasons why. OMFMMG. The fans are insane for real. I'm sorry they chased you off. That's unjustifiable. It's ironic because pro shippers say stuff like fiction isn't bad actually because it doesn't hurt real people. And then you have KS fans doing that and choosing KS as the hill to die on. I'm not a diehard fan, I swear. I just think it's stupid and funny. Stupid ass got his legs broke. Digging a hole for myself in this comment for real. I don't want to read comments anymore. These are just like, I can't stomach these. I hate everybody who watches this show.
And I love everyone who watches this show.
No, I love everyone who watches the show, and I love reading the. Yeah. Do you have anything to say in response to that jargon?
Not really.
All right. Well, moving forward, we have a single voicemail. This person, their name is Joey Bedine, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
Yo, what the fuck is cracking Demigloom and Felonious Ferris? It's me, President Biden. I'm just calling in to let you know that me and Jill have been listening to Middle School GSA since episode 1, and we really love what you guys have to say. The one issue I take is with the fact that Felonious Ferris insists upon saying bye-bye at the end of the episodes instead of bye-bye, which any American should know is socially unacceptable. It is because of this failure that I will no longer be tuning into this show. Bye, you miserable bitches.
President Biden! I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's over. You fucked it.
Oh,
we lost our biggest fan.
Oh, no.
Our biggest two fans, Joe and Jill Biden. Can't believe you just chased him out like that.
I'm sorry.
Very disrespectful.
I didn't mean to.
I mean, I need people to comment this. Do you say bye-bye or do you say bye-bye? Like bye-bye or bye-bye? Because nobody should in their right mind would say bye-bye unless you're talking to like a toddler. When it's a toddler, you go bye-bye. You don't say bye-bye to a respectable human being.
That's just what I say. This is just how I talk.
Well, don't talk like that. Stop. Get some help. Take speech therapy.
No. I took speech therapy as a kid.
Oh, why?
Just a little bit. Autism, dummy.
Yeah, but you weren't diagnosed until like a month ago.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, they just attributed all of my autism symptoms to ADHD somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was getting like physical therapy to be desensitized to stuff and speech therapy and was in special ed, but they were just like, "Oh no, they just have ADHD. It's fine."
Oh, okay.
They were wrong.
I know that now. Yeah. Do we want to talk about anything before we get into the topic?
I'm 720 something episodes into One Piece. Let's go. It's so good.
Congratulations.
Dressrosa arc. Doflamingo is an amazing villain, and it's
Did you
so
say
good.
Rosa Parks?
Doflamingo.
Oh, I thought you said Rosa Parks.
Dressrosa is the arc name.
Okay. I just want to say, because I know that everybody listening is queer, the new 100 Gex was not as great as you guys are all pretending it is. It was pretty good. 100 Gex, they're great artists. They are very innovative, and they've inspired a lot of great artists, including Demigloom. But they don't have the Midas touch. They're not perfect, unflawed artists, and Frog on the Floor is not a good song. Neither is $1 Million. Those songs are fucking garbage, bro. Don't even pretend that shit is good. It's not good. It's dog shit. I like the jazz metal part of $1 million, but it got ruined instantly by the pathetic excuse for dubstep with electric guitar. It was fucking terrible. But yeah, today we're gonna talk about not performative activists because you're tired or something.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about social anxiety, which is a pretty easy thing for me to talk about. It's something I've got quite a bit of experience with, and it's not a difficult topic for me to. I don't really have social anxiety anymore, and I can pretty much just reflect on my experience from a third-person perspective, pretty objective. Do you have social anxiety currently?
Yes, it's not quite as bad as it was. It's still something that I need to consciously manage. But overall, not as bad as it was.
Yeah, for me, like I naturally have like impulsive anxiety, where I'm like hesitant to do something. But like my brain, like I've reached a point where I'm able to identify anxiety and like remind myself that it's irrational and not allow it to influence my decisions. I guess I can't say I don't have anxiety anymore, like social anxiety. I basically just choose to ignore it. Like I'll be super anxious about something. I'll be super anxious to initiate a conversation with a coworker, or to like walk up to the door and knock on it, or even sometimes something as simple as like going behind the counter, talking to someone behind a counter. Like I do experience a certain amount of anxiety, certain uneasiness, but I'm able to be like, hey, don't worry about it. You know, it's all good. And I feel a little fuzzy in my stomach for like a split second, but once I push myself to actually do it, I'm pretty much complete.
And that is actually exactly how you treat social anxiety. You just
People are gonna get really mad if you say that.
It is, but it's true. I didn't go to residential for social anxiety, but I was there with people who were in for social anxiety and anxiety in general. And there's a kind of dialectical behavioral therapy where you acknowledge your feelings. You say, yes, I'm feeling extremely anxious and that's really uncomfortable. And then you just try and separate yourself from those feelings and try and push past them. And as you do that more and more, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's natural response to the mere suggestion of exposure therapy is literally people are just like, I can't. Yeah. You don't understand. I can't do it. And to those people, if you really like physically can't do it, and I do believe that, I don't think people are lying when they say that. The best thing I can recommend is like doing the activities, but like with a safety net. Like my sister had really bad anxiety, and when I tried to help her work through it, I would essentially just she'd be like horrified to like speak to somebody behind a counter when she was like 13 or 14. And she couldn't do it. I was like, just do it, you know, like it will. I've been there in the same situation. Like, what I do is I just walk up and just completely ignore my anxiety. And she's like, I can't do that. So what I had her do was I would stand like right behind her and basically just have her do everything herself. And she could just like tap my hand or something if at any point she felt like too nervous to speak, or she was like, you know, like when you do you ever have like when you're like super socially anxious, like you just feel like you freeze and you're just like incapable of saying a word? Like if that happened, I would just have her like tap my hand or whatever, and I would just take over for her. And I think that's this wasn't like a regular thing that I did. I just helped her with this like once or twice, but I think that is a really useful activity that a lot of people have had success with. I would strongly recommend that to anybody. Get a friend or a family member to help you out with those situations. And I would encourage people to be less judgmental of those with social anxiety. They're not just pussies. They're not just like super childish. There's genuine reasons behind being socially anxious, and at the end of the day, it's an emotional reaction that's out of someone's control, and there's no reason to judge somebody for that. Yeah. If you have a friend with social anxiety, like if somebody has super unbearable social anxiety, I would obviously don't violate anyone's boundaries, but I would recommend like trying to help them out. I think everybody with social anxiety could really, really use a friend to help them out.
And please seek out help from a therapist or psychiatrist. They can help you so much. Seriously.
Yeah, for sure. I always forget to tell people to seek professional help because I just have really bad experience with professional help.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has nothing to do with psychology as of like in general. I have a lot of faith in psychology, actually, in psychology practices. It's just that my personal experience with the professionals that were handed to me has been pretty negative. If you don't like your therapist, like switch. Never see them again. That's the best advice I can offer. It's awkward. It's an uncomfortable thing to do. You feel almost obligated to just kind of like maintain the status quo of doing the same things that you're always doing, seeing the same people. If things aren't getting better or what they're saying isn't resonating with you or you think they're full of shit, they can be. Therapists can be full of shit. They're human beings. You know, they provide subjective analysis. And that's part of why therapy is so great is you have a subjective perspective to that is also like trained. It's just find someone who you resonate with personally, and they are out there. There are all kinds of people, or psychiatrists, or whatever.
And it can take
go on.
It can take a lot of work to find someone who you click with, but when you do, it is really, really worth it. And they aren't. I keep seeing people on the internet saying that therapy is a scam that's just meant to sell you antidepressants, and it's absolutely not true.
Therapists don't make money from antidepressants.
They don't. This is true.
They're not financially incentivized to convince you of anything.
Mm-hmm. And
in reality, like I guess they're kind of financially incentivized to keep you seeing them and people. But like, I don't think that's even like reflected in the majority of how therapists act. I think people who become therapists aren't doing it for money. Like, it's definitely a field of passion.
Yes.
People genuinely care about, like, even if, you know what I mean? Even if you want to be super cynical and say it's, they don't care about other people, they definitely care about themselves and being a good therapist.
Yeah, and
that's how they're going to try to win you over.
Yeah, and people definitely overestimate, how good a job it is to be a therapist. They think that it's super easy and then you get paid heaps and heaps of money, but starting out as a therapist especially, it's terrible, and you'll only be able to get positions in mental hospitals and prisons, dealing with people who are just at the lowest points of their mental illness, and people don't subject themselves in all that for not very much pay initially until they can start their own practice. But it like people aren't doing that for money. They're doing that because they genuinely want to help people.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure somebody out there is doing it for money, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're questioning the intentions of your therapist, fucking leave them.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Like, just try other ones. Same thing about, like, meds. Like, I'll talk to people to be like, yeah, no, antidepressants, they're not for me, dude. Medication, my issues are beyond medication, which is, I mean, I'm not pretending that medication will 100% fix your issues, but, like, and I ask them, they're like, yeah, I've tried, like, 3 medications and none of them work. It's like, there's hundreds out there. Whether or not they're antidepressants, like, there's a lot of medication, a lot of therapeutic practices out there. You keep trying shit, man. People, you think you've tried like a large fraction of it. You think you've like experienced all that therapy has to offer, when in reality, you can't experience all that therapy has to offer in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But you can try things from all sorts of different realms in a lifetime and figure out what works for you. something works for you. A lot of things will hypothetically work for you. You just got to find one of them.
Yeah.
Don't fucking listen to Sneeko, bro.
Who's Sneeko?
Don't listen to the alpha males. You don't know who Sneeko is?
Mm-mm.
He's like an Andrew Tate clone.
Oh, nice.
That's how a lot of people refer to him. He's you'll probably recognize him if you spend any time on Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, or TikTok. You've undoubtedly show discussed this dude.
Show discussion. I haven't seen him before.
You've never seen this guy?
No.
Oh, he's super big, but he's like super anti like acknowledgement of mental health. Basically, he thinks that everyone should just go to the gym at 6 a.m.
Yep.
and eat raw eggs. One of those people. And hey, man, there are people out there who are depressed to the point of being suicidal that started going to the gym and like exercising and then felt way better afterward. That is a form of therapy that has helped a lot of people, but it's not the only thing that works, and it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't like when people. Hey, I'm willing to admit that talk therapy isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think but like a talk therapist will undoubtedly be able to help you. Will be able to communicate with you and figure out what is going to work for you. That's not talk therapy. That's why I keep telling people to try different ones.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I've seen a lot of stuff in the like gym bro communities where some of it is really positive and supportive, and then other aspects are just exactly the opposite. People who have no idea what they're talking about just saying things that are going to end up discouraging people from accessing resources that might genuinely help them.
Yeah.
And I know that for me, part of why I first started really, really struggling with anxiety and social anxiety as well as depression was because of physical activity. It was because of sports. And that's just, it's not something that I have, the solution for me was to disengage from those activities. It wasn't to, I don't know, keep engaging. They believe that their experience is singular and universal. And it's really upsetting. And it also doesn't take into account people with physical disabilities, and people who, because of trauma, might have other aversions to it. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why people can't just go to the gym and have it cure their depression. I do think that it's worth trying for pretty much everyone, just for a number of reasons, and it is for people for whom it's effective. It is very effective. It's just that it's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone, and it's not going to like. It's not for everyone. It's not the only thing that helps people.
And it also won't resolve any of your issues with trauma. If you have trauma, you still need to go back and evaluate that and fix that. I see a lot of people who dealt with terrible things, and rather than opening that bottle back up and figuring out how their behaviors continues to be affected by it and figuring out how they can do better in the future, they just go to the gym. And that isn't going to fix your problems. That isn't your future relationships are going to continue to be toxic and not what you're looking for. You still need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, 100%. Trauma is such a complicated thing to unpack and deal with, and it's such a subjective experience as well.
Yeah.
There's so many. Trauma also takes so many forms, many worse than. Yeah, there's like trauma is unlike things like a lot of people's like just depression or anxiety. A lot of those things can be worked with pretty standardized approaches, but trauma is a very, very difficult thing. You kind of have to figure out on your own how you're gonna cope with your trauma.
Well,
You kind of have to be led in like the right direction, but at the end of the day, you have to do a lot of the work.
yes, absolutely. The thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, especially about getting professional help, is it's not like you're going to go to one session and then have all your problems fixed. There is a lot of emotional labor that you need to do within yourself. And a lot of confronting of your own behaviors where you may need to acknowledge that you've done something wrong. And for a lot of people, they're unable to do that kind of thing. They believe that somehow acknowledging that they've done something wrong or aren't handling things in the healthiest of ways means that they're a bad person or they are bad because they've done something bad. It's a process, and you may slip back down the slope at times. But yeah, it's work. It's not a magic fix.
Yeah. And that's the case with everything.
Yes.
Mental health related, but trauma is a much more subjective thing, the work, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is true.
But yeah, social anxiety. Do you want to give us like a timeline of your social anxiety, and I can do this?
Yeah. So,
like what it looked like for you personally, and how your relationship with social anxiety has changed over time.
Mm-hmm. So I was actually first put in therapy in 3rd grade for childhood depression and anxiety. For a bunch of reasons.
My brain told me you were going to say child abuse for some reason. I don't know why.
Was I the one abusing the children?
Yeah. In that context.
But I think there were a whole bunch of different things affecting it. A lot of it was trauma and the way that a lot of environments are hostile to neurodivergent people. But it was right around 3rd grade when I started being kind of hyper self-critical and self-aware, and started losing my self-esteem. And it got far more severe as I went into middle school. And, you know, I thought kids were mean before, but they got meaner then. And I started having that paralyzing feeling when I was talking to unfamiliar people or in unfamiliar situations. And I definitely start hearing this voice that was like telling me that everyone around me was judging me, and that no one liked me. And
well, was it true?
Honestly, a little bit. Not 100% true. Not to the point where I should have shut down the way I was. But people definitely are extremely hostile and discriminatory towards neurodivergent people. I mean, the whole cringe culture thing, by just being a little bit cringy, people justify bullying children into suicide on the internet. It's really, it's terrible, and it's not quite as bad in person, but not by much. Just people are much more under the radar about it. And then things got even worse when I went into high school. And that paralyzing feeling started being all-encompassing. Like, I just could not talk to people. And these feelings would often go away once I got to know someone. But then got worse again when I started being bullied really severely in high school. And then the anxiety got to the point of like severe paranoia. Like, I could barely go outside because I was so afraid of, if people knew me, if they would see me and come up to me. People who knew me and didn't like me. And my self-esteem really, really crashed. And it was really, really terrible for a while. But, I went into treatment, not for anxiety among other things, that residential treatment. And that was really life-changing for me. It did this complete 180 where I went from having cripplingly low self-esteem and being constantly on the verge of being suicidal and having no ability to assert myself or talk to people. I still have really big issues with people pleasing, but it's not as bad as it was back then. And I definitely feel myself regressing at times and going back to being that just cripplingly anxious person. But it's something that I had to learn that, no one has ever died from a panic attack. No one dies from anxiety. You may have this incredibly uncomfortable feeling in your body, and this isn't to say that isn't something that's a struggle, because that's real. That is real distress and discomfort. But you also need to reach a point where you're able to set it aside and say, okay, despite this super uncomfortable feeling, I'm going to go do this thing. And admittedly, this may have been easier for me than it will be for other people. But that's just how it ends up. That's just what needs to happen. You just need to go do the thing.
Yeah. When people have like super bad anxiety, like the last thing they are going to the last thing they're like naturally inclined to respond to is that sort of thinking, though.
Yeah.
Like the anxiety itself will manifest in like a means of preservation, and they grow so comfortable not with their anxiety but with their practices of avoiding anxiety that it becomes worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where ripping the Band-Aid off feels like it's going to be the worst thing ever.
Absolutely.
And that's the saddest part. A lot of people even know, like they're like consciously able to acknowledge that, yeah, if I just walked up to the person behind the counter and said what I wanted, everything would be fine and it wouldn't be a big deal, but I still can't.
Yeah. And it is absolutely true that avoidance, where you know something is going to trigger your anxiety, so you just avoid it, that makes the anxiety worse. It builds up in your brain this sense of dread for doing something. And it eventually becomes much more difficult than if you were to have just done it the first time. And this is why I think it is so important for people with anxiety to go get help for it, because there are schools of thought that can help you challenge all of it. And you don't have to just face it alone, because I know that it can feel like an insurmountable wall. But it can get so much easier if you have someone there to direct you.
Yeah, 100%.
And it makes me incredibly sad to see people on the internet. I mean, you know more about the incel community than I do, but it makes me...
I'm not proud of it, but yeah.
It makes me so sad to see them, because I see what they write, and I'm identifying these traits that I know that I have conquered after a lot of work, and still struggle with occasionally, but am able to move past at this point. And I see them struggling like this, and I know the solutions to their issues, but rather than considering any potential solutions, rather than considering that anything could ever possibly get better, a lot of people choose to surrender to it, to just roll over and say, well, going outside makes me anxious, I'm just never going to go outside. And that in turn is going to make it even more difficult to confront. It's really heartbreaking. And a lot of men on the internet struggle with this, and it makes me so angry to see these male spaces where people are discouraging going to get help, discouraging telling someone about it, and asking a friend to help you. And this kind of crab in a bucket thing where they're just pulling each other back down and no one really knows what they're talking about, but they're giving advice as if they do. It's deeply frustrating and sad to me.
Yeah. It's depressing as hell. That's one of the most depressing things I've ever witnessed is the incel community. It's a group of what is probably at this point like hundreds of thousands, if not like 1 million, that actively are united under a set of delusions and like just values that are based completely in unwillingness to change and just, acceptance, quote unquote acceptance of this so-called inevitable fate. I mean, the majority of incels at this point have convinced themselves that they're literally victims of genetic natural selection that are destined to die. And if that's not delusional, I don't know what.
Yeah.
It's really depressing, and honestly, we should do an incels episode.
We should.
Where I can talk about my complex history and relationship with those. At the end of the day, though, I really wanted to help a lot of those people. I was nothing like them. I was in their community for a long time, but at the end of the day, they never really accepted me, and I never truly accepted them or considered myself one of them. But there was a long time where I was in forums and, kind of trying to find common ground with, not necessarily help people in the sense that I was doing much better than them and I was in a place to give advice, but just trying to find camaraderie. And basically I wanted these people to not be fucking deluded, because I do see legitimate grievances here: social anxiety, beauty standards, just a lot of things, a lot of serious shit these people are dealing with. But none of them, at the end of the day, I feel like once you finally go down that pipeline, once you make it far enough, you're just going to convince yourself that everything is like innate and inherent and that nothing will ever change. And they're so stubborn. They're so stubborn that they won't listen to any amount of logic. No, like there's not like a perfect set of words you could craft to convince them otherwise. They have a confirmation bias that is so strong that they'll never let go of it.
Yep.
And I think the unfortunate reality is that these people are doomed, not because of their fucking like jawline as like they think it is, but because of their unwillingness to change. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how they convince themselves truly that it's completely over. They're like, I'm never going to get a girlfriend, bro, so I'm just going to lock myself in my room, never step foot outside, take a shower, or shave or cut my hair or do anything. I'm going to be a fucking gremlin. And then when like 7 years later, when that doesn't get them a girlfriend, they're like, see, it was never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They don't try. You can't say something's never going to happen, make no effort to make it happen, and then, go, I told you so. Yep.
And, it is, man, now I'm forgetting what I was going to say. This idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy is absolutely true. And especially when you begin to build your identity around being miserable, around being anxious, around being forever alone, that kind of guarantees that those things are going to continue. You need to challenge these ideas if you're ever going to get better. And the thing is, challenging these ideas takes a lot of work. That is a lot of energy and time that you're going to need to spend on getting better. If you spend that time, you will get better. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, sitting in a cave and never going outside is much more comfortable than doing the work of hiking out of the cave and getting their eyes adjusted to the light and talking to people and building a new identity. That's just, it's so much work and it's so difficult, and I don't think that people acknowledge how difficult it is enough. I mean, to a certain extent, a lot of people just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, well, it's just what you've got to do. And they aren't wrong. This is something that people do just need to get their act together and do, but that doesn't mean that we can't acknowledge how difficult it is.
Yeah, for sure.
We need a lot more resources for...
I think, sorry, go on.
We need a lot more resources for people who are struggling and easier ways to access these things. A lot of the issue is that we live in America and people can just use the excuse of, oh, therapy costs money. But yeah.
I hate to like just be like full like cynic, like Catcher in the Rye mode, but I do think a big part of inceldom and loneliness and that sort of thing is like the performative nature of adult like conversation and mingling.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that once you graduate high school, there's not a whole lot of spaces for people to just like shamelessly mingle, be themselves, express themselves for who they are, and, you know, form relationships based on who people actually are. There's not a whole lot of opportunities, at least for most people, that most people are witnessing in plain sight.
This is absolutely true.
For socialization. Once you're done with high school, you don't just, you know, there's not like 50 other people that you have a million things in common with, just right at your disposal, ready to be friends with you. And with adults, it's all small talk, pretending to be someone else. Everyone's a fucking phony. Everyone is, including me, including you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when you ask somebody, like, oh, what are you doing when you get home? At work, you don't actually care.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you do to an extent. But like, what I'm really trying to say is there's a socially acceptable response to pretty much any prompt somebody presents you with, and you don't really have a choice.
Yes.
As far as how you interact with people. And when that's the case, just everything feels so hollow and lifeless to the point where making friends is extremely difficult. I think the best thing the world has going for it in this area is social media. Like being able to just like add somebody on fucking Snapchat or whatever, like that, you know, that you see frequently in real life, and then being able to like through text express yourself and be more honest or vulnerable. People are often more comfortable doing that, and I think it's more acceptable to be yourself in a text conversation than it is, especially like in the workplace.
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, there's still a lot of room for improvement as far as providing adults with opportunities to socialize. I'm already starting to feel this way. Like, I just graduated, I'm in the workplace, and I'm not really presented with a lot of opportunities to get to know people, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fucking depressing.
Yeah. It is. It really, really is. I know that pretty much all of my close friends, you know, outside of work, they're all people who I originally connected with on social media. I mean, I might have gone to high school with them briefly together, or just been friends on Facebook with them for a while. But originally I started those conversations, or they started those conversations over social media, and that's how we connected and became real life friends. But even that, once you reach a certain threshold of social anxiety, is incredibly difficult and scary. And I think that there's still a lot of stigma around making friends that way, which I think is really, it's sad.
It is really sad. I think also a lot more people, especially young people, are having like internet friends these days,
Mhm.
and grow so comfortable. Like they make peace with the idea of only having internet friends, which I think is terrible, 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 terrible. I was in that boat for a while when I was like earlier in high school. I was pretty much like, yeah, nobody wants to fucking talk to me. I'm just gonna do podcasts or just be in Discord calls all day, and that's just my life now. This is the extent to which I will be able to exhaust my social energy. And that was really, really, really bad. Discouraging yourself from talking to people or even trying to make friends is horrible. It's important to acknowledge things that could make it better, things that are outside of our control that would improve these situations, but that is by no means my way of encouraging people to not even try to socialize or to give up. It's just a much harder thing and requires a lot more work.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of this is multiplied by the fact that a lot of people with the worst cases of social anxiety have social anxiety because of something like autism or ADHD or OCD. These things that are out of their control that just kind of make us always feel like a black sheep, make us feel fundamentally different from the people around us. And then the people around us, in turn, judge us for things that aren't under our control or things that we don't even consciously realize are bothering people or that other people find weird. I think that we need a lot more education around and acceptance around neurodivergent people. I think people love to say that it's not a big issue anymore, and like, oh, kids are gonna go out of their way to make friends with whoever's alone. But reality,
that's not true at all.
Yeah, people like to make up movie characters and show characters that do that stuff, but rarely does it happen in real life.
I don't think people ever talk to the quiet kid, including the other quiet kids, especially them, actually.
Yeah. And it sucks, and we need a lot more education around it, and a lot of this involves teachers and educating them on the way that neurodivergent kids operate, but also parents just bringing their kids up to be accepting and to be kind. I think people don't acknowledge enough that there are genuine barriers to people like incels that prevent them or make them perceive that they've been prevented from leading happy lives, and how difficult it is to reassimilate once you've fallen down those kind of rabbit holes.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that incels have like very few like legitimate grievances, but they refuse to address them in any meaningful or productive way.
Yeah.
So they, in spite of having a couple of legitimate grievances, their like nihilistic approach is completely unjustified. And I don't think when I say I think some incels have legitimate grievances, that's by no means me saying that they're right about some things. Even in rare instances, I don't believe the incel or the black pill opinion. I think it's completely wrong. It's a delusional reaction.
Yeah. I do think that there is a future for them if they manage to challenge their ways of thinking and put in all of that work. It's just there aren't very many avenues out like that.
Yeah, and the only people that reach out to them are people like Andrew Tate, who just want to scam them and continue just feed their delusions.
Mm-hmm.
Feed them enough more.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my. I don't mean to say that like the left trying to appeal themselves or market themselves to incels. I do think progressive offer more. Do exactly what we're doing right now and just acknowledge that life is just hard for a lot of people and talk about what could possibly be done. I don't think leftists do a good job of communicating that. In spite of leftism literally being like in theory and practice being all about making sure that everyone in society is accounted for, I think we do a horrible job of accounting for people that aren't like at the forefront of oppression currently.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're doing a bad job of acknowledging like class struggles or mental health struggles or just genuine struggles that the entire population is going through without it being connected to a marginalized identity.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are much more likely to. It's always like super identity specific, which I think is great. It's amazing that we're capable of engaging in like intersectional analysis and like layered thought, but it's also important to account for literally everybody because first of all, that's how we win. That's the biggest part. Second of all, everybody does matter.
Mm-hmm. And I'm eternally frustrated by leftist spaces because a lot of the time people just revert to being callous and mean when there's someone who disagrees with them. And even if this person has like definitely a wrong frame of thought like incels, that doesn't mean that the solution is to be mean to them. That's actually actively alienating them more, that it's throwing gasoline on the fire. And that's not to say that, anyone is entitled to your energy. You don't need to go around attempting to rehabilitate these people, but I also think that it's really important to not be actively mean and see them as human beings rather than I think the internet makes us I mean this is platitudes, but they're just ones and zeros on a screen. You don't see them as a complete person. And that just causes people to be alienated even more. I
don't actually take issue with insulting and ridiculing incels. But my approach is I believe we need to do a better job of ridiculing, insulting, and humiliating the ideology rather than usually when leftists make fun of incels or they try to ratio them on Twitter, it's almost always they just make fun of them for their looks or for being fat or for having acne or like the Virgin Chad memes, which is you're literally just like feeding into their way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if we did a better job at just humiliating or mocking the concept of like hypergamy or like it's just like the stupid shit they believe in,
mm-hmm.
I think we would have much more success. People don't like people don't respond or care to the my argument is the Chad and your argument is the Virgin. They do respond to feeling like a fucking dumbass
mm-hmm.
when they do respond to like feeling stupid because they're super insecure.
Absolutely.
And, like self-motivated. And I think that's a better thing to do. I think we should make them feel like idiots rather than feed their idea that they're like intrinsically entitled to nothing other than starvation and suffering, which is what just like making fun of them for how they look does. You're just feeding their ideas because they have this idea that like, you know what I mean? They're genetically, naturally selected to just die and never reproduce. And then when you say like, haha, fucking loser, you're never going to get laid, you're just feeding that delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you were to, in a weird way, make fun of their idea that they're never going to get laid, teach them that they can get laid
mm-hmm.
while still making fun of them and humiliating them. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. This might make me a cold-blooded manipulator, but something that I do when I see someone just being a complete cucklord on the internet is first I clown on their ideology. I explain exactly why they're wrong and tell them that they're being a cucklord. And then I try and extend kindness to them and offer to talk to them about it. And actually, more often than not, people take me up on that offer and acknowledge, even in that same conversation to me, that, or start to acknowledge that they were wrong. And see, the thing is, that's like a tactic that cults use to indoctrinate people, but if I use it for good, is that okay? But,
I mean, like, Hitler drank water, right? Like, I don't think it's necessarily like cult-like behavior to present people with kindness. I think at the end of the day, if I don't think these people, I think if you were like with kindness, if you approached them with kindness and then spouted a bunch of bullshit that had no basis in reality, I don't think it would resonate with them.
Yeah.
It's just a way to get them to listen.
Yeah. Well, Demigloom,
Well,
what do you think?
about what?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Sounds like we might be getting ready to wrap up.
Squeeze out a little bit more.
A little bit more.
But yeah, I think my social anxiety was like really, really, really bad, and I don't mean to downplay. It's really bad. There was a point where I couldn't talk to people on the phone. Like, I couldn't hop in a Discord call or fucking order a pizza. It was so fucking terrible. I was incapable of doing very basic like human functions. I think the worst thing for me was agoraphobia.
Yeah.
Agoraphobia is one of the worst fucking things you can deal with. I convinced myself that I was just so fucking hideous and repulsive that if I stepped foot outside, everybody would just stare at me and think I was repulsive. I mean, I still think I'm an ugly motherfucker, and I think people look at me and say, "What the fuck is that thing?" But I don't think it's not to the point where, well, it's not it's not necessarily that I'm like inherently just like repulsive. It's more so
don't justify it to me. Just move on. Keep going.
I'm not justifying
Keep going.
I'm explaining that it's flawed, and I'm okay, whatever. I don't have enough gender confidence to walk around and feel happy that people are making eye contact with me. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm able to just stop giving a shit, just stop caring, which is the best thing you can do. If there's no way of convincing you that people don't judge you, then make peace with the fact that people judge you, and tell yourself, don't tell yourself, acknowledge that if people are going to judge you for the way you look, then they're not somebody whose opinion you should even account for.
Yep.
Why the fuck would I want to subject myself to the standards of somebody who's going to judge me like upon eye contact? It's pathetic.
Yep.
But yeah.
That's a huge thing. I
really think go on.
Realizing that anyone who I say this, but at the end of the day, I think that these super judgmental people can get better and realize that they're being assholes. And then at that point, I might want to be friends with them. But I think realizing that anyone who would judge me just for existing as I am, I wouldn't want to be friends with them anyway. I shouldn't be spending so much energy worrying about how these awful ableist transphobes perceive me. They're not people whose opinions I particularly value anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think the worst part, besides agoraphobia was fucking terrible, and I suffered from it for years. I think literally like starting in like 5th grade, I reached a point where I was just like, yeah, wow, everybody fucking makes fun of me. I got bullied so fucking hard too, man. When I was a kid, like, people bullied me so hard that I was afraid to even open my mouth or make eye contact with anybody. I literally, like, my social anxiety pretty much dominated my life up until last year, 2020, like 2021, 20. When people would like try to talk to me or say hi to me, I would basically just like not make any eye contact with them whatsoever and just like freeze like a statue or just continue walking. I would never ever like stop what I was doing, and like I could ever transition into social mode, especially with unsolicited, just constantly walking, never looking back or just sitting completely still. People would literally say my name. People would literally say my name or say hi and then say my name, and I would be so afraid that they weren't talking to me, like that they were talking to somebody else, that I literally just wouldn't respond to them and basically just pretend that I didn't hear. I still do that a little bit to this day, but it's not nearly.
It's a process. All of this is a process to overcome.
Yeah. I remember specifically the infamous story of me changing my hallway route because of you. You said hi to me like every single day, and I was so fucking horrified because I never knew how to respond. Because I was too stupid to realize that when somebody says hi, you say hi back. Still working on that to this day. I still have trouble with that.
Oh boy.
I think like one time ever somebody said like hi, and I was like, oh hi, and then it turned out they were talking to somebody else.
Oh no.
And that happened like a couple times in my life, and it was so scarring, so traumatizing that I could just never, I just, when in doubt, just always assume that somebody is not talking to me. And by doing that, I do something much more embarrassing, which is just standing there and not responding at all, like acting like I'm deaf. People feel really insulted. I'd probably feel super insulted. People think that I just like am disrespectful, and I don't think they're like even worthy of my attention. Whereas it's actually quite the opposite. I have such an inferiority complex, and I'm speaking retrospectively. I'm not like this anymore. I was at a point where I had such an inferiority complex that I assumed that nobody would even dare want my attention. Like there would be no reason at all. I'm trying to think. Yes, I pulled it up. I have a list on my old Reddit page of things that made me super socially anxious, or just things that my anxiety did to me that I didn't think were normal.
Hold on, I'm gonna close the door to my
interaction.
room.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. I'm gonna read off my list of things that I wrote almost 3 years ago, and I want to know if you relate to any of them. Human interaction. I mean, have you, what I said about like just not being able to respond to people, have you ever experienced anxiety like that where you kind of just freeze?
I'm usually able to respond to people. I don't think I've ever experienced not being able to respond to someone.
I have a much harder time, or used to, still do a little bit. Had a much harder time responding to people than I ever did initiating conversation.
Wow.
To this day, it's much easier for me to like walk up to somebody like, yo, what's up, bro? Like literally like a random person, I could go say hi to a random person. But if somebody speaks to me, I just completely freeze and become horrified.
God, you're so weird.
I guess I'd like to be. I guess I'd like to be in the driver's seat. Maybe I'm more comfortable because I'm in control, and maybe I am used to being so like vulnerable or horrified that I kind of just maybe I subconsciously assume the other person is horrified. I don't know. I don't know what it is, bro. Crossing the street, I have listed here. For one reason or another, I was always horrified to cross the street. Not necessarily because I was afraid of getting hit, but because I was afraid of just crossing at the wrong time. Like I could look and see like 0 cars coming and just be horrified that somebody would pull up and like see me crossing the street when I wasn't supposed to, and just like be pissed, be like, what a fucking idiot. Because there was like a couple times throughout my childhood where I would cross the street too early or whatever, and somebody would like slow their car down. This is something that really fucking pisses me off. Still to this day, when I cross the street, because I blame the other people. I used to blame myself. When I cross the street, and I witnessed the car at like a very, reasonable distance, right? I know that it's okay for me to cross the street, but the car will like slow down or like stop for me.
Mm-hmm.
I really hate that. They'll like slam on the brakes or whatever. When it's like, no, like I know that I'm able to cross now.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I am just standing there waiting for a car to go by and they stop. Again, I like to be in control of those situations for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Food and drink. If I was ever sitting at a table with multiple people, I would always be absolutely horrified of like eating somebody else's food or grabbing someone else's drink. If I didn't see the person to my left and the person to my right like both grab their drink, I would just assume that every drink on the table was theirs. I would need like 100% confirmation. Even if it literally didn't matter, we all had the same exact thing and they could have just grabbed the one right next to it. I was absolutely horrified to like just grab the glass of milk and eat. Even when I logically knew it was mine, it's to my right, it's sitting closer to mine than anyone else's. I am entitled to this. I was so afraid to ever grab something if I wasn't 100% positive it was mine, because I would feel so incredibly guilty if even for a moment someone thought I took something from.
Yeah.
Last one, being wrong in school. I can't tell you how many times a teacher asked like a really simple question, and like something really simple, like 4 times 2. Like literally, they could ask like, "What's 4 times 2?" And it'd be like, "All right, someone raise your hand," or like they'd call on me, and I would just freeze. I wouldn't, because I would always assume that I was somehow like being tricked, or that somehow I was gonna fuck it up. And I'm always right, of course. Of course, every time I'm right. I know what it is, but I refuse to answer, even though I know exactly what the answer is, just because I'm so afraid of being judged. I'd rather say I don't know what 4 times 4 is, or 4 plus 4 is, than say 8 without 100% confidence, and I never had 100% confidence during that time. Never had that full confidence that I was right, because I had so little faith in myself. Or, I thought maybe I'm failing to account for something, or surely there's no way that they're asking me such a simple question. I'm just missing something. I'm so stupid that I'm misreading. And yeah, that was a big problem. And all those things that I just listed, I barely experience them at all anymore. Maybe intrusively for a split second, but I can always work through it. It's never a problem anymore. And I guess the reason why I wanted to list all the specific details was because I want people to realize how fucking pathetic I was. Pathetic's not a good word. I don't mean to like insult people who experience anxiety. I don't think anxiety makes you pathetic, but like it was really like how like so life dominating this was for me, and how I was able to overcome it like so quickly with exposure therapy and just a little bit of faith and confidence in myself. It was so worth it to just try. And I guess regarding social anxiety, that's what I have to tell people, is just try, please. No matter how uncomfortable the prospect seems, I promise you will not regret trying. It is 100% the better option. You have 2 options. It's try and not try. And not trying will always lead to a worse outcome than trying, as far as social anxiety is concerned.
Yes.
And that's pretty much all I have to say about social anxiety. Do you have anything you want to add?
Not really.
Well, all right. What should we do for comment question of the day?
I guess, do any of our listeners struggle with things like social anxiety or anxiety in general? And if there's...
They all do.
Yes. And if there's anything in particular that they can identify that helped?
That's a good question. I would say also, if you have any like stories, whether they're serious, sad, crazy, or funny, any interesting stories that were any interesting stories with social anxiety as a subject matter or an influence. Anytime your anxiety got you into some wacky shenanigans or any stupid things you did because of anxiety, I'd love to know. I particularly, if anyone has anything crazy like me doing something that's objectively more difficult just because my anxiety was controlling myself, like literally spending like 3 or 4 extra minutes in between every class during passing time by switching my route because I was horrified of making eye contact with Felonious Ferris. I want to know if anyone else engages in behavior like that, or if it's literally just me.
It's not just you, but yes.
Hopefully, for a while now, every time I talk about my specific shit on middle school GSA, everybody says to me like, "Oh my god, that's crazy! I go through that too." I'm a very hashtag relatable figure, it seems. But yeah, if you have any like really funny shit like that, I really, really, really want to know. But if you don't, that's fine. I want to hear about people's relationship with social anxiety and how they deal with it. It's a good, productive conversation to have, and I'm really, really happy we did this tonight because I think this is a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, where can our listeners find you?
Twitter at Felonious Ferris. I barely use it. I should probably start going on it at least a little bit. And I made an Instagram at Felonious Ferris. I'm not gonna post anything on it. I just have the username for now. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. There's nothing on it. But Felonious Ferris anyway, and Tumblr at Felonious Ferris. That is something that I'm actually reasonably active on. If you want to see me shitpost about One Piece, yeah.
Are you back on Twitter?
I mean, not really. I haven't deactivated my account or anything. Every once in a while, I get a notification from you and I respond to your tweet. But
yeah, that's why I asked. I've gotten a few Felonious Ferris likes and responses. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Demigloom, although my Twitter is, I'm not really doing anything productive on there. I mean, not that anyone does anything productive on Twitter, but I'm not invested in Twitter anymore like I used to be. But you should check out my YouTube channel just called Demigloom, Demigloom. And I have a couple political video essays that were edited in fucking FL Studio. Kind of shitty, but also charming content. I made a video about femboys, a video about abortion, and a video about trans people grooming children and lack thereof. It's pretty good. I like my videos.
Yeah.
I like the ones that I have out. But I recently bought a slightly, I wouldn't say slightly. I bought a Filmora, Wondershare Filmora for like $80, really good price, and it has a lot of the standard editing features, and it's much simpler to use. For my kind of content, I think it's going to be perfect, and I'm going to have a really good time. I'm currently just trying to figure out what I want to make my next video about. Communism video is canceled, by the way, unless I can stir up the motivation to dig into my old hard drive and retrieve every single file and then go back to the script. That's not going to happen. But yeah, long story short, I got a new software, and I'm going to be able to make better content. My videos are going to be better and watchable for people who aren't crazy leftists. And last but not least, The Issue Crew is a weekly podcast hosted by 6 people who are all internet degenerates, including me, Riley, Mo Diggity, Jellyu, and just bad people. Everyone on The Issue Crew is a terrible person, and that's why it's a good show. If you want to listen to me talk with a bunch of terrible people about terrible things, it's the show for you. It's really funny, it's chaotic, it's insane, and we all disagree with each other on pretty much everything.
God damn it. You guys need to record on a different day so that I can record with you guys, because the one day you record is my dad's singular day off, which I spend eating takeout and watching Breaking Bad with him. So, I'm not fatherless.
You hang out with your father? That's pretty fatherless behavior.
But yeah, I want to be on The Issue Crew. God damn it.
Fatherful behavior. Yeah. You don't want to be on The Issue Crew.
I want to be on The Issue Crew.
You're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna like anybody. My relationship with everybody on that show has soured. I genuinely believe that most of the hosts on that show are just terrible people.
No.
Like 100%. At the very least, I think everyone on that show has disgusting politics. Riley, Candor, and Andrew, I have a tremendous amount of respect. But everyone else is really bad, which leaves me, Jason, and Mo Diggity. We're all. You know what? I think I'm just singling out Jason and Mo Diggity. I hate Jason and Mo Diggity, and they're 2 pretty active hosts. They're terrible people, disgusting monsters. But I hang out with them in spite of that, just because I enjoy their company. Yeah, I'm on a tangent. This has been Middle School GSA. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.